Well, anyway, I kind of lost track of what happened tonight. As I said, we turned in an estimated damage of the amount of around $10,000. Then we got invitation somehow from FEMA to meet and talk about it. My daughter and I own the house. As I said, they gave us $2,300, but I haven't heard any more about it since. Now, should I have some kind of additional claim in somewhere or what? I was never. I said, as I said, I never heard anything.
I did speak to you before Christmas, and I don't know if you or your daughter did file the appeal to get it or not. I do know a lot of people working on the appeal. FEMA coming in, that's not us, that's natural disaster. They came in, and they've got money to do natural disaster. Ours would be engineers if there was a defect in our sewers. The FEMA that gave you the money was because of the rainfall, because of the storm.
Right.
He's talking about the claim. He did.
Right, for the city, yeah. Yeah, well, really, there hasn't been a decision exactly made yet. We're hoping soon, meaning
I mean,
probably with
a
month
couple
or
hundred,
less.
couple $1,000 would help a lot.
Yeah,
Because everything's at a standstill, and I don't want to go too deeply in debt for the next 10 years. I'd like to
so,
try to pay it off
Fingers.
in a year or two.
okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Ed.
Is there any other questions? Well, okay, what we'd like to do now,
Okay.
and this is what we would normally go in closed session, but we're going to allow all of you to hear. But Patrick's going to give you a little bit of history because we've actually were successful in some litigation against Wayne County. And the city of Dearborn Heights was under the state drain code, which is about yay big and hasn't been amended since, I think, 1952. When I was in the legislature, they had talked about amending, and there were some representatives spent their whole careers up there revising the drain code, but it affects so many people, they couldn't get enough votes for it to pass. So we're still under this 1952, I think it is, drain code. So Patrick's going to give us a little bit of a history. Patrick McCulley is our attorney and his specialty. He works in consultation with Gary Miotke, but his expertise is in these kind of matters. And so consequently, we rely on him and his expertise. And then after you paint the picture of where we've been, now we have to strategize in what direction that we go. So with that introduction, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Council. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight to share with you some of the legal and practical issues we face going forward with regard to this project. Permit me to give you a little bit of history, maybe put some of these things in perspective. In May of 2004, there was yet another major flooding event. As a result of that, the Dearborn Heights City Council authorized the mayor to sign what's known as a Chapter 8 petition under the Drain Code. That petition is directed to Wayne County that basically says there's a problem, we need to fix it, and now County, under the Drain Code, you have to take certain steps to start that fix. Representative Heisey, who was at that time the Wayne County Drain Commissioner, in accordance with the Drain Code, convened a board of determination to consider the necessity for the requested relief in the petition, namely fix the problem with the Ecorse Creek flooding. On December 15, 2004, the board of determination met and heard extensive and overwhelming testimony on the necessity for the project, and unanimously adopted a motion, quote, that the maintenance and improvement of the north branch of the Ecorse Creek drain is necessary and conducive to the public health, convenience, or welfare. This was, again, all pursuant to their authority under the Michigan Drain Code. Based upon that finding of determination, Wayne County then issued an RFP which was responded to by several consultants, including the Spicer Group, which led eventually to the Greenway study going forward. One of the concerns that the city had was to make sure that based upon this finding of necessity by the Board of Determination, that Wayne County didn't drag their feet. In other words, we wanted to make sure we could hold their feet to the fire to go forward as they were required to do under the drain code to begin working on the fix. Based upon that, the City Council authorized me to file a complaint against Wayne County and Wayne County Circuit Court. It was a complaint signed by Mayor Paletko, and in essence, we asked the judge to whom it was assigned, Judge Colombo, to order the county to go forward with the improvements. The complaint was known as a mandamus complaint. Now, mandamus is a Latin term which basically says we command. We were asking the court to command Wayne County to go forward with the fix on the Ecorse Creek problem. While we initiated that complaint in February of 2010, based upon the Spicer study which had been completed, we learned that Wayne County was in discussions with the Army Corps of Engineers to review the Spicer study, the Greenway alternative, to see if the Army Corps could be made to be interested in getting involved with this project, to review the Spicer study, the Greenway alternative, with a view toward getting some federal funding for the project going forward. Based upon getting that information, we approached Wayne County and said, we think we need to clarify exactly what you're going to do and when you're going to do it, and how we can make sure you're going to do what you say you're going to do. Based upon that, we entered into a consent judgment with Wayne County in May of 2010. The purpose of this consent judgment was to make sure that if the Army Corps study somehow floundered, we could still hold Wayne County to making improvements to the Ecorse Creek situation. The circuit court judge entered the consent judgment, and one of the benefits of that, again, was to make sure that Wayne County knew that we had a circuit court judge overlooking their shoulder, to make sure that in the event the Army Corps study failed, possibly for lack of federal funding, we could still go back into court and require Wayne County to do what the Board of Determination said they had to do, which was start fixing this problem. Now, once the Army Corps of Engineers got involved, they began to look at the alternatives, as Mr. Brooks talked about this evening. And they looked at several alternatives going forward and settled on this approach that Dan outlined to you. It's been a slow process. There have been many, many steps in this process of the Army Corps review. There are several approval levels that have to be met. There are a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through, and all of it's driven by the ability to get funding to do these things. While this process has gone on over the course of the last 3 years, I became concerned that somehow the city might be in jeopardy of losing its rights under this consent judgment that I talked about. And so we did some research and arrived at some conclusions that I've talked to the City Council about. In my sense, I'll give you an overall impression of my sense, and that is that the Michigan law seems to say that if there are reasonable excuses for delays, in this case, in complying with the Chapter 8 petition, the court will say, it's okay, we're not going to prejudice anybody's rights, everybody's still in the same position they were and can go forward. My sense was that based upon the fact that we now had an agency, the federal government involved, the fact that progress was being made, albeit slowly, to arrive at a proposed fix and funding for it, we probably did not run the risk of our position, the city's position, being prejudiced as far as keeping Wayne County on task. Therefore, I feel that this consent judgment is still an enforceable document. We can still go back into court and talk to the judge about making sure that Wayne County performs as we're required to do. One other issue that came up as I was reviewing this matter was, what can we make Wayne County do? Can we hold them to the Spicer study, the original Greenway study? Can we make them go forward with the Army Corps study? And there's not a lot of clear law in Michigan on that point. We can make them do something. But it may well be at the end of the day, the drain commissioner, whoever he or she is at that point, will have the opportunity to look at a study. And maybe it'll be the Army Corps study with some Dearborn Heights enhancements. Maybe it'll be something else. But we still have the ability to force a fix to the problem. Let me share with you a little bit about where we are and what's gone on in terms of the Army Corps' efforts. Again, they started this back in 2010. The first draft of a general reevaluation report was issued in December of 2011. And it looks something like this. I mean, this is really just the basic study without all the exhibits that are on the website that you could take a look at. The city kept pushing Wayne County and the Army Corps to say, can you speed this up? Can you get the funding necessary to take this to the next steps? Mayor Palecko and I have met with the county and the Army Corps folks on many occasions, attended many of their seminars and many of their presentations to make sure that this was still online. And let me just provide to you a little bit of background about what's gone on since 2014. And I'll give you the most current version that I learned today from discussions with Kelly Cave, who's the Wayne County person in charge of this project. Again, there was always some concern about getting money to move this project to the next phase. And in July of 2014, the Corps of Engineers informed Wayne County that funding was now available to complete the agency technical review, which is one piece of their review of this reevaluation report, and an independent external peer review, an IEPR. You can see that there are a lot of agencies at the federal level that have to take a look at this study to approve it, to ask questions, and to have those questions answered before it moves to the next stage. In November of 2014, the Corps of Engineers informed Wayne County that the regional divisions and offices of the Corps of Engineers had identified the Ecorse Creek project as a high priority project for the Corps and agreed to fund both the completion of the agency technical review and the peer review at federal government cost. In December of last year, the Corps of Engineers informed Wayne County that funding to complete the ATR was included in the 2015 work plan appropriation request. It was stressed at that point that all the necessary I's have been dotted and T's have been crossed to put the funding request in to get further money to have this project go forward, to have the peer review done, to have this study updated and completed. And at that point, in January of 2015 this year, what were the next steps that we were facing to move this project along? First, the Corps of Engineers had to complete their ATR and issue a final report on the fix. The final draft report would then be reviewed by this peer review group, and they would take any comments on that final report. The Corps of Engineers would then submit the report for the final approval process, including the Corps of Engineers headquarters. Again, it keeps bouncing upstairs and getting more and more approvals at higher and higher levels, including the Assistant Secretary of the Army in charge of Civil Works. And then upon acceptance of this final report by all the various federal agencies that had to review it, there would then be an expression by the Army Corps of a federal interest in completing the flood control project. And it would then go to Congress for funding. Now, what did I learn today? Again, I made an inquiry of Kelly Cave of Wayne County, and she provided this information to me at 5 o'clock today. She said, and I quote, "We've recently learned that the Corps of Engineers Detroit District, that they have received the first $100,000 of the estimated $300,000 they need to complete the agency technical review and the independent peer review of the North Branch Ecorse Creek General Reevaluation Report." She indicated that they are now working with the Corps of Engineers and their consultants get the team together to get this work underway. They estimate to have the agency technical review report done by this year, and the peer review report to be done within the next 8 to 12 months after they get the funding, which is expected to be a little bit later this year. Upon successful completion of those efforts, the Corps of Engineers will submit the report through the final review and approval process, including by Corps of Engineers headquarters in Washington and the Assistant Secretary of the Army. They said this process will take approximately a year. Upon acceptance of the report recommendation that there's a federal interest, the matter then goes before Congress for funding to move the project forward to the design engineering phase. The timetable is not a happy one, but in light of the fact that the federal government stands to pick up at least 50% of the cost of this project, as opposed to the cost coming out of all the communities for the Wayne County study, it may make sense to try and wait this out a little bit longer. That's one of my recommendations. The second recommendation is I think we need to take a look at making sure the Wayne County Circuit Court is aware of the progress that's been made, to make sure the court's satisfied that the city's not been dragging its feet, understanding that this is a long-term, complicated, very expensive project, that there are a lot of approval levels in Washington, that eventual funding by the House and the Senate and approval by the President is going to take some time and some lobbying, but that, in fact, we are doing everything that we can to move this forward for the benefit of the citizens. So that's where we are with it. I'd be happy to answer questions that the council may have or the audience may have.
Any council questions?
One question, Patrick. We didn't get a chance to see you all the time, but two things I wanted to let you in on, because I didn't get a chance to give you a debriefing from my meeting with CEO Evans on Friday. Spent almost a whole day down there at the Guardian building. I think it would be beneficial to get Judge Colombo aware of what's going on, because I had more than one person. I did not hear this from Mr. Evans, so I'm not gonna, I don't know, but the transition team, and he's got a new person he's appointing on April 1st, and we met with him. That's gonna be his top deputy. They kind of had suggested they want to get out of the entire drain business. And so under state law, I mean, that becomes a real problem for any of us in Wayne County, because all those public act and the drain code forces us, we can't take our petitions to Washtenaw or Oakland County as much as we'd like to on occasion, but so that's a problem. And then the other thing is, so in that light, I'd like to have Judge Colombo bless that we're still protecting our preventative right. I don't know, you two attorneys have to determine what, how to do that, but I think all of us would authorize you to go and do that to make sure we still have established and have continued our right. The other issue is I'm toying with the two people who were the Wayne County spearheaders of this under the Ficano administration have both been terminated. So Cindy Dingle and Ellen Hemkamp, who had championed this for us after Kurt Heisey left and were my key contacts, are no longer there. And that bothers me. I have less confidence in Kelly Cave than I do in the other two people I just mentioned. I hate to say these things on TV, but nevertheless, that's why we go in closed session sometimes. I think we have to consider maybe our own lobbying effort. And the person that came to my mind who championed the dollars originally for this project, and that was Senator Levin, and he's working for Honnigan Miller. Mm-hmm. But since he was Armed Services Chairman, I think, in the Senate, has all those relationship and contacts with the Army Corps of Engineers and all the people while they're still there, it would seem to me that we ought to consider having him be an advocate for us. And while we'll get good advocacy from Debbie Dingle and the like, I think he would be a very valuable person, and because I don't trust Wayne County watching this project for us anymore. And I want to have us have somebody that I can call, or anybody on the council, and say, you know, how's this going? Where are we at? And I would feel more comfortable. But I think he might be a good guy. If that's agreeable, I'm going to make a contact. I don't know what the rates are. I don't think we're talking about a whole lot right now. But that's the other concern I have, is that the two champions are gone. We don't have a champion there anymore.
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Mayor. And one other thing that came to mind was, because we're dealing with the new administration, it might be a good time to weigh in with the circuit court to let him know where we are. I mean, everybody's aware of the county's financial distress, and I think it'd be important to let Judge Colombo know, you know, where we are with the project, and to get that kind of reassurance from him that you know, we still have rights to be protected.
Yeah,
Freshen up that consent judgment.
Well, part of the issue is making sure that the judge knows. Patrick and I had spoken earlier today, and I had spoken with the mayor earlier. It's not necessarily a matter of being confrontational with respect to the money issue, when a lot of money could be obtained through the federal government, potentially. So we're thinking of something, well, we're thinking of something less drastic than, say, a motion to show cause, something more along the lines of a conference. And that way we make sure that the judge doesn't feel that we've sat on our rights. But at the same time, if he feels like, well, you need to do something, then maybe we do something more significant at that point.
in my testimony in my meetings down on Friday, the comment I was told is that, you know, we don't know if we're being driven into bankruptcy, emergency manager, or what, but we're running out of cash. The situation is very dire. We don't have the ability and the time to devote to a project like this right now, and that bothered me. I mean, it was basically, let us figure out the finances to keep the county continuing, and that's, when I hear those kind of comments, and you can quote me on them when you talk to the judge or you want me to come testify, that's alarming to me. And so, and I'll tell both of you who I heard it from, but I'm not going to publicly say that right now. But that's my concern, is it's not on the radar screen. Our champions are gone. I don't like the situation. We're not I mean, this is just 3 months into the new term, but I think we need to reestablish exactly all those situations as soon as we can.
I'll confer with Corporation Counsel, come up with a strategy to get this back in front of the judge.
I mean, we don't want to bypass. We're assuming you're
No,
all
we agree.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure we all concur.
Yes.
Are we gonna be able to, when you go back to court, talk to the judge? Are you gonna be able to express the concern that it'll be 6 years since the Spicer Group told our city that there was a problem, and that there was 301 properties in harm's way? Are we gonna, is the judge going to, I mean, is that something that would maybe expedite this situation?
Yeah, we'll remind him of the allegations of our complaint about the, you know, the dire need to fix this, and that it's been this period of time, absolutely.
I have a question. Is there anything we can do to help you, help any of you?
Not at this point. Thank you for the offer. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I see, and I said this before, but I think it's become extremely critical. In fact, I want to take some of you with me when we're going to be, we've strategized where we're going to be visiting some other congressional Candace Miller, Bob Latta. Debbie has a very close relationship with Marcy, but I still think it would be important for us. And I want to take some of you with me. And the reason I want to do that is I think having you sit there and say, I lost everything, all the damage I had, and make it that personal. I've been through flooding of it, but I want to make it, I'm going to say, here's some of my constituents. And in whatever way that we need to appeal, because at some point I'm afraid of opposition and resistance. I don't know where that's going to come, but this is why this was very beneficial, because we're all in this together. We're going to have to all fight together to do this. And I still think, I hate to say this with the camera, I wish I could believe it. I still have been from the very beginning very concerned that the ability to pay is somebody is going to raise that issue. And to the extent you two need to be cognizant of that and help us out. I mean, I think it's helpful, and I was looking, I still have all the 13 letters from Inkster and Westland and Romulus and all of them where their consuls all approved the project, but these are new mayors, new consuls. Nobody wants to pay for something if you don't have the problem. And whatever we need like a little task force. And I mean, to sell this originally, I went to a lot of council meetings all around, as did Kurt Heisey. And because back in the day, the Ficano administration made us get 13 separate resolutions from all the communities that were affected. I think it was 13. That is not under the drain law. That was not required. We didn't know if we could do it, but we did it. And that was tough. That was tough getting Westland to approve. I had to beg Mayor Wild, and he agreed finally. And Inkster was a tough one with Mayor Hampton. We went around to all of them. But we're going to need that because we may have to visit other cities, other councils, and explain to them our situation. But let's protect the legal thing. We're going to do the lobbyist thing, and that's when we're going to need her help. And I also will be asking her, although her comment was, you might want to get my husband, John, involved with this, and his mind is very sharp, and let him help formulate a strategy to put together the lobbyist group. And so I'm going to take Debbie on that, and I think we've been offered, her husband, John, is to assist us. And fortunately, we're getting him for free, so we're getting a very great resource at no cost. But she said he'll embrace this, it'll give him something great to do, and by all means, Mayor, well, you were there. She told me to utilize them, so I'm going to utilize them, and what better way? This would be an excellent project.
One quick question, I just want to clarify. All the funding needed for the finishing of the review was requested, is that what I heard correctly?
Correct. And apparently the first 100,000 of the 300,000 they need has been delivered.
Okay, that's what I mean.
Adam, could you check on that? I'm not saying I don't trust Kelly Cave, but if you were able to check on that, I would feel more comfortable if I heard it from Adam and the Dingle office directly. I don't want to be citing her, but I don't trust, I hate to say this, but the longer I go, I don't trust Wayne County.
Do you know what the county's point of contact is there? Do you go through the same person? Could we contact them, or should we go through our own channels? Would you like us to independently verify that?
I think an independent assessment would be best.
Yeah.
Question. You had said it would take about a year before this gets presented before the Congress for funds, approximately?
2 years. 2 years.
2 years. What is construction time then on the project itself?
Where's Mr. Brooks?
If they approve the last...
You're going to have at least a year of design, and then construction probably anywhere from 2 to 5 years, depending on, it'll probably be in phases. All right. Right, and you've got,
I'm
right.
living in a senior
So it is a lengthy process.
We did.
He said 2 to 5 years.
Before you could have done it.
It really confirmed what I've been researching on, and it went right along, and I'm glad to see where the city has been filling in my questions. But I would like to say one thing, is if you don't get the funding, let's just say, Wayne County says, no, we're not gonna give you the funding. Now, my question is, since all these other cities are pushing their water on us, because when they drain their cities, their water is basically coming into Dearborn Heights, Romulus, especially Taylor. Can't we use that as leverage to say, hey, look, if you don't wanna go on this, let's put that gate back up on Monroe Street there, and then you can deal with your own flooding, and we'll take care of our own water too. You can't use the Ecorse Creek because you're flooding us out. So if you don't wanna help us, then don't use the Ecorse Creek. Can we do that?
One of the issues that you may see is if in fact Wayne County takes that position, we'll be back in court, and at that point we probably have to name all the other communities that use the Ecorse Creek. And at that point, there'll probably be several issues on the table. Funding, allocations, usage of the basin, usage of pump stations. It'll probably be a free-for-all at that point, but if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
But why are these other cities allowed to dump their water on us? Why, we wouldn't be allowed to do that to another city. We couldn't take and save them a little channel. Why are these other cities and industries and MDOT and I-94 and all these people allowed to dump into the creek? They just simply flood us out. Why do you do that?
I think Mr. Brooks addressed that earlier in terms of the
Maybe it's because we're
district.
Yeah.
Everybody in the district has a right to discharge their water on their property. Dearborn Heights, the water from Dearborn Heights goes through Allen Park through Lincoln Park.
Right.
So it moves downstream.
Yeah, but it floods us out first. We're like the
I
shock.
understand that. That's why we're trying to get this project approved. And if let's say there's a project, whatever the project is, and let's say it's done through the drain code only, everybody in the drainage district will be assessed. You know, a community can't say, well, I don't want to be part of it, don't assess me. It gets all assessed as one community, one drainage district. All right, so it doesn't, a community doesn't say, well, I don't want to do it, so I'm not going to do it.
When did the drainage district, who made up this district?
District,
And allows this water to be
this
dumped on
district,
Dearborn
I think, goes back to 29, I believe. Ecorse Creek District.
Mr. Chair.
This is the natural drainage course of Ecorse Creek from
Exactly.
Mr. Chairman.
Taylor has also to get rid of their storm and sewage.
Okay, Gary, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was just going to comment, I mean, the whole basis of, or one of the main ideas behind the drain code is that everyone in a drainage district contributes all along the lines, and that's why, as Dan was saying, we have the idea of assessing properties that could be upstream and everything else. But even if you look at some of these studies, there are judgments that are made with respect to how much more should be borne by someone who's close or not close to the actual area. So it's a very complicated issue, but your concern is recognized in the drain code.
But Gary, I think her comment, which has merit, is how do we know that the flow that's coming in from Taylor is appropriate? We basically have to rely on the Wayne County allocations.
Right.
And how do we know that, for instance, this is wild, but hopefully they're not doing it, but let's say they went on the other side, I-94, because they had problems in the Keffer drain or whatever it is. So they brought it over from I-94 and are dumping in Dearborn Heights. How do we know that?
Well, and
I don't know.
And I think that's still would be an open issue, and that's why we need our residents to be looking at these different issues and raising them, because lawyers can only work with information, and we don't necessarily have all of that information. So providing this type of information is very helpful to us, potentially as well.
So I'm going to follow up on the Banner Street, and I'm going to see if I can get some flowing data. Although that's been another problem, is that the data coming in from Wayne County has not been, it's not coming through. I mean, I would say around November of last year, kind of got shut off to everybody. My observation.
What about, why did they break, or why did they take that gate away at Monroe and Course Creek?
And there was a lawsuit about that.
What was the
What was
lawsuit?
the lawsuit about?
I can't, there was a lawsuit at Banner. In fact, I was a very young boy. This part of the building didn't exist. And I remember the Banner Street because Dearborn Heights and Taylor got in a lawsuit. And the Monroe one, I'm sorry, don't know.
Basin behind, off the E-course and
No, it actually.
and it bypasses the reef drain, bypasses, goes under the reef drain to the north range, and there's a sluice gate there that's broke open.
Yeah.
It's open, it can't operate.
Let's look, can we review that and give me a report on that? And let's look at Banner and that one too. Thank you for letting us know.
Can I give you this? This is our finding.
Sure.
Sure. Mayor, do you think you can make some copies and then get us, or?
Oh, yeah.
We'll have,
Thank you.
oh, you've got them done.
Oh, you have?
Oh, excellent.
I'm sorry, my printer ran out of ink, so some of you
Thank
are
you.
going to get light copies, and I apologize for that.
Thank you.
And of course, this is
Thank
an
you.
ongoing
Thank you very
study,
much.
so it might be, we're just trying to get the facts going here.
Mr. Chairman?
Lee?
Yeah, thank you. I would, I wish to thank our residents, Suzanne and Todd as well, Troy, as well, for their efforts since August. They've done a lot of work, put in a lot of time researching information, meeting with us and following up. And of course, this is great. Thank you so much. Your time and efforts are greatly appreciated. I did want to say that with all this information this evening, I think we can all agree it's important to follow up with Judge Colombo, of course, on the consent agreement of 2010 to ensure the county is satisfying the court's opinion on what progress is. But also, I want to mention when somebody talked about lobbyists and what can residents do, and I think it's really important to stress and understand that our elected officials, our residents, we work together and we are effective together as a tool, as a resource for our community. We are lobbyists, all of us are. And your stories, your pictures, your videos, everything you've done, your experience you've gone through, your voices need to be heard, and that will truly have impact, I believe, on the way this goes and the way it ends for us. So I wish to thank you for that.
How many houses are going to have to pay on this in the south?
Everybody that's in the Ecorse Creek drain. So if you come up after the meeting and you look,
I mean, okay, everybody in the south end drains from where to the Ecorse Creek?
okay.
In other words, from where, Dartmouth down or what?
Here is one of the things we talked about, that normally we have handled drain projects on a citywide basis. And so, once we have a project, we know the cost of it, then we can look at it. Because one of the things is that normally, in fact, the millage is dropping off on the C of Os, and that's something we need to talk about at this point. We're John and I are trying to determine with the attorneys as to what that millage could be used for, but I've already gotten a preliminary comment, but we'll give that information to you. There are some north end projects that are going to have to be dealt with. There is a thought that rather than put them in the water rates, although technically under the assessment, each of the people, the 8,000 homes would get the bill, and that would be it. But if we look at ourselves as one city, and we have some C of O projects that would also need to be done, and I think the timing would come together, is we could consider going out for, let's say, 1 mil. I don't know how much would be needed, covering all those projects. And the beauty of paying ad valorem tax on it versus water and sewer is that I can deduct my off my income tax, the taxes. I can't deduct a water bill at all. So that was the logic before, to take care of the CSO basin. And if you treat that on a citywide basis, and now you're looking at 26,000 homes versus, 6,000, you might be able to bring the entire cost of it. So, but that's a millage would have to pass. The remaining C of O problems, one is by your home, Mr. Pudo. There is a CSO over by that Inkster border, and Dan, would that include the area north of Michigan Avenue also, or am I misspeaking?
No, include the entire strip area.
Okay.
And
so,
north of Michigan
so
up to
area,
Avondale.
We're mandated to separate that. Yeah, and the other one, there's another area in the north end. We were gonna go into the Detroit Tunnel project, but Detroit ran into such financial difficulty. But there's a combination drain with Redford, Dearborn Heights, and that's the other one. So the thought was to do these projects simultaneously, combine them all, and go out for a millage under that. But that's what we have to know, what the costs are, and determine it, and pay for that citywide. I mean, that's the things that we talked about. And then the project becomes very affordable. If we can knock half the people that now are buying flood insurance, and they don't have to buy flood insurance anymore, what better way to start to improve the quality of life, the housing prices in the South End, helps the entire city, and save all those neighborhoods, because nobody wants to live in a home that's flooding every 3 years. Nobody will buy the homes. So they're depressed. Yep. Homes are selling. You can take the same home, put it in the South End, let's say on Hanover, it's going to sell for $35,000, $40,000. You move it up to, let's say, Charlesworth off of Warren, and it's selling for $140,000. And that's, in my mind, the reason. So now you can start to see the values of the homes, and with the greenway, the quality of life goes better. This is so important for Dearborn Heights. It's one of the most important things, if not the most important thing.
I agree. I believe there was I think there was a consensus of all 7 of us that should be shared without the whole city. We've done that with all the other projects also. And that would be way far less of a burden than the people just in that zone, so.
But what gets me is we're gonna do an E-course, Chris, on the south end on Dearborn Heights. We're gonna help Island Park, Lincoln Park. That's not gonna do any good.
No.
What do you mean, no? Our water goes into the E-course Creek, it's gonna go into Island Park. Island Park floods as much as we flood.
But the project calls for the solution so that each of the communities are not flooding the other out. But I will tell you right now, Lincoln Park and Ecorse have a kind of a war going on, and what's happened is this communities do this. Now they claim not, but I've been around long enough, and I see this happen time and time again. Somebody has effectively made some changes in the city of Ecorse that all of a sudden now there's more flow coming in Lincoln Park, and they're getting flooded with rain that they didn't have before. So Wayne County went and investigated it and told Ecorse, you got to fix these problems because too much flow beyond your capacity is coming in. And that was one of the beauties of this new service agreement that we wrote, because one of the things in the service agreement is in the opening thing, it talks about an attachment and requires all the communities to adhere so that they're not flooding each other out, and says if you are, then Wayne County or DUA, which is Downriver Utility Wastewater Authority, could go in and force a community not to do something or to fix the problem. But you know, when I sit at these meetings, and Patrick's at a lot of the meetings like I am, I mean, there's like little battles going on between community 1 and 2, A and B, and it surfaces at our meetings. But right now, I mean, that's a problem, and everything tends to suggest that Lincoln Park is being violated with all this excess flow. So and the railroads have to pay, MDOT's gonna have to pay for the roads, everybody that's in the drainage district. That was the beauty of the chapter that we filed under the drain code.
Well, maybe we should stop Wayne County for building ship docks down at the bottom of Ecorse Creek there going into Detroit River. You go down there, right where the Ecorse Creek goes right into Detroit River, on the north side of it, they build a bunch of docks for boats. Look at it.
I will.
Yeah. That's there whenever Wyandotte Yacht Club is down there. They build a bunch of docks for small boats that can go underneath Biddle there and go right into the Detroit River.
I will look at it.
Docks down there.
We'll look at it. Thank you.
But there's been some down there for a while, right?
But
They've-
not on the north side there.
Oh,
There's
okay,
always on
'cause
the
I
north
remember
side.
seeing
They're
those.
Big boats, but they build for small boats on the upper side of them, right there where they store the boats. That's been there for a couple of years.
Well, I hope everybody
Okay.
found this beneficial.
Is it one more
Other question?
question?
As a question.
Sure.
We've heard that this project may take about approximately 2 years or probably more. And as a matter of fact, there's a lot of cities that have been dumping through the Ecorse Creek and flooding our city. And we cannot guarantee we might not have some more storms within the next couple of years. And as if Suzanne Todd have asked if we can block that gate back, and you said no because they have the right to flow through the Ecorse Creek. Can we limit that flow?
Well, I heard the response that it is true, they have a right to discharge because they're in the drainage district. However, 2 comments were made about portions of the drain, and I am right with them, that Troy's comments and Suzanne, we're gonna investigate those discharge points and any others that people come up with. And I've asked the engineer to go in and get the data. If they're discharging more than they should or an unreasonable amount, I have no problem going into court and resurfacing and fighting the action because we're already, I mean, Ridgway was the person I think that was the hydrolysis, and she said, your city is like a bathtub. All this water comes in, and you're at a low point in the North Basin, and you're the depository for everything. And so it isn't fair for us to get flooded. That was the argument that was raised in general terms when we went through the Board of Determination. When we gave testimony, we said Dearborn Heights is adversely affected and is the worst community that's being affected by how the process works right now, and you need to give us relief. And as was mentioned, by a 3-0 vote, the Board of Determination, after 3 days of testimony at the U of M Dearborn Fieldhouse, said, we agree, there's a problem here, and that was the key. Because once they said there was a problem, then it required under state law that there be a solution formed. And what we got to do is that final step, get that solution implemented so we don't have that problems going in the future.
Well, eventually we know we have a problem, we have a solution, we're working on getting the solutions done. But how can we protect ourselves for the next couple of years until that solution comes in effect?
Sandbags?
That was, I mean, it's going to help some people, but that's why we filed for the mitigation grant. And
Well, Mayor,
I
I'm
can't
sorry,
answer your
but, you know,
question. Yeah.
especially Hanover Street does not flood just in August 11, 2014. Hanover Street floods every time there's rain. Whenever there's high level of water goes into the Ecorse Creek, Hanover Street will have at least 1.5 to 2 feet of water, to a point you can't even let your car run down that street. And within the next couple of years, we're gonna have the issue again and again and again and again. So how can we protect ourselves to stop or limit that issue until that
Should have had the answer.
Well,
Solution
Chrissy
comes
didn't
back.
say what street, but we're looking at Hanover
we're
Street.
talking about the city,
because-
we're not talking about specific people, we're talking about everybody.
Yeah, I know.
I have one more thing to add. I have one of those drains at the end of my neighbor's, directly across the street from me. At the end of her driveway, she has one of those drains that are supposed to be a slow draining, I don't know, what do you call it?
Restrictive.
Drain, okay? And I talked to Mr. Zimmer this summer, and I told him, he said, well, it's supposed to drain very slowly. I said, look, my neighbor will empty their pool out in the street, and that water will sit on that drain for weeks on end. So it's not just restricted, it's stopped up. So he came out last time, and his guys opened up that drain and found it to be plugged up, and they cleaned it out. And then the last I heard, you said that the drain further up the street was supposed to be talking to that drain. I thought that's what they told me. Your guys told me that. Anyway, that drain now drains. It might be restricted, but it does drain now. And I'm wondering, how many of those other restricted drains have you looked at to make sure that they're not plugged up?
We have so many leaves.
Yep. Yep. And some, I bet you if we made a review right now, we'd find a bunch of illicit.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming the city. I mean, a homeowner has to take some sort of responsibility in cleaning up their own properties. I do understand that. But I've lived in the city long enough where I've seen our street sweepers come down more than once a year, okay? It used to be a weekly thing in our city. It's not anymore. And no one can sit there and tell me that they're doing it weekly, at least not on my street, it's not.
It's not.
And when the street sweeper does come by, it's not really doing nothing but shooting the leaves out in the middle of the street. They're not cleaning anything. It doesn't clean. Now, I don't know if I remember here a few years ago, we had bought a brand new machine, did we not? 4 years ago, so we bought a new street cleaning
The
machine?
machines are pretty old. We're gonna,
It cleans.
We've got three that are 1996. And two of them that are, I think one is 2012.
It cleans.
I'm speechless, I don't know what to say. I know as a resident, I try to keep it clean. Not everybody does it. There isn't an ordinance that says that you have to sweep it up. There's an ordinance that says you can't put it there, but it doesn't have an ordinance that says you gotta pick it up. Okay, so what we do is, I'm down there this past few weeks ago, and I'm with a pickaxe, picking out all this ice, and if you go down my street, you'll see where I've shoveled all gigantic mounds of leaves onto the lawns. I can't possibly go around my whole neighborhood and do that anymore.
no,
And
and
I'm to the point where I'm 60 years old, I'm still healthy, and good, God, thank God, but how much longer can I be able to do that?
yeah, I will tell you that Bill and I are addressing street sweepers. The council's gonna be requested to purchase a couple of the older vehicles. We looked at a consortium amongst about 5 communities, and that didn't seem to work out. There is a gentleman who contacts me periodically who would like to do that on behalf of the communities. And what he would like to do is get 1 or 2 of the communities. He'll go out and buy the units. But he switched. The last time I met with him, he said, well, I thought you guys were going to buy them. And what are they, about 300,000 apiece?
250.
250 was the last one.
What-
Yeah.
Yeah, so I believe you're gonna see some major changes. We've done a lot. One of the things that we addressed is the trees. And what did you tell me, Bill, today, that you've done 500?
Over 500 since November.
So we're slowly because we're getting healthier financially, you're gonna start to see improvements in those areas.
I was down in Auburn Hills today, Rochester. I saw street sweepers all over the place already.
Mm-hmm.
They're out all over the place.
Yep.
You know, we're probably paying more in overtime than we would have by giving them back their 10% and letting them work Fridays instead of time and a half, double time and all that crap. It's about time we passed the Headley override. Let's get this city back to working 5 days a week and 8 hours a day and get these streets cleaned up. It's a mess.
We
It's a damn big mess for a city that we pride ourselves on being one city of the future. What? Big mess all over the damn place. You can't even go down the street anymore without leaves all over the damn place. Get it cleaned up.
Well, the snow did just melt. I mean, you have to admit that the snow just melted. Oh, I know, oh, I agree.
Look at the leaves piled up against
I think we're,
I agree.
It's nuts.
Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Okay, I just want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you very much, and we will continue to keep you informed, because I didn't see someone else had a question?
No, I was gonna say about the rain barrels.